And so I wake up getting thrown out of a helicopter with a parachute on my back. I couldn't tell you why they didn't want me dead. I mean, I'd obviously seen some crazy confidential stuff that they didn't.
And when you say they, are you talking government?
I do believe so, yeah. So I'm plummeting into the forest. I only have so much time. I pull my chute. I'm trying not to land on top of a 50-foot tree. It's nighttime. I feel like these giant bugs just smacking me as I'm coming down, like getting in my mouth. And so I'm getting closer to ground level. I just see like a giant tribe forming a circle around me as I'm lowering, and they're like forming right around where I'm about to land. And so now I'm getting terrified because I'm like, this is it. I'm dead on arrival. And so I land into this circle they've formed. I plant myself, brace myself, and they're just looking at me like wide-eyed. I'm waiting for the arrow to go through my cranium, and like out of nowhere, they just start like getting down on their knees, like worshiping me, and like they think I'm like God or something. Like I realize they don't understand. They see this guy come floating down out of the sky, and they assume me as a god. I'm being like paraded. They're carrying me around, like bringing me their finest women, great food. And so I'm living within this tribe, like a literal god. But I'm like, okay, who sent me here? Like, what's going on? Like, what a polite group of people to kind of just drop me into this place where I'm going to be worshipped and like live out this life of a goddess. And so like one night I'm realizing something's seriously off, I feel, just different. The demeanor in some of these tribesmen is different, and so I sneak out of this room where I was staying with, 2 or 3 gorgeous women, luxurious spreads of food. I had like a guy who would sit there playing beautiful music. But so I sneak out and I go over to this den. I basically see the whole tribe having like a celebratory gathering. They're like dancing, feasting, parading, and I look closely in the middle. There's a man who's been beheaded, and I'm like, that's really strange. So I hadn't been told anything about this gathering, nor did I know like this tribe was into killing people. What had really set me over the edge where I knew something was seriously off, he was wearing the exact same outfit that they had given me. I basically start realizing in that moment, holy shit, like they're not worshiping me, they're grooming me for my beheading and their soon-to-be feast made out of my flesh. I'm like, holy shit, like I need to get out of here immediately. So I head back to my room just to collect my thoughts, and as I'm making my way back there, out of nowhere, this just menacing, disfigured man literally blindsides me, tackles me to the ground. I'm like, dude, what the actual fuck are you doing? And he looks me dead in my eyes, and he just goes, shh, I'm saving your fucking life. At this point, I'm like, I don't know what to believe. We hear footsteps coming up from the tribes people, and this guy just says to me, they're coming for you, pretty boy. Want to live to see tomorrow. You better move your ass and stay close. So he just starts scurrying off into the shadows. I just start hauling ass behind him, trying my best to keep up. This guy's dragging me into the deep, deep forest. I'm like trying not to trip. I'm like, yo, buddy, can you explain to me what the fuck is going on here? And he's like, better run now, boy. Humans can be the least of your worries around these parts. I peek behind me. I see like a just ferocious jaguar. Like this thing was like, must have been 5 feet tall, strangely huge. And he's like, because we're running and approaching a huge swamp, and he just goes, you know how to swing? He runs, jumps, grabs onto this vine, just starts like Tarzan swinging across the whole swamp. He's just vine to vine, and I'm looking like these 20-foot crocs in this swamp, like biggest I've ever seen in my life. And I'm like realizing I gotta make a move. I'm watching this jag like walk me down from behind, and I'm looking ahead at these gurgling, like hungry crocs, and I'm just sweating like, holy shit. I just gather myself. This jag is like a leap and a half away from me. And so as I leap to this vine, the jag literally is in midair behind me, and a massive croc jumps out of the water and literally catches this jaguar in its mouth. I'm like trying to process. So I'm swinging, and these like gigantic gators are like just snapping at me. So anyway, I finally get to the other side, find some level of safety, at least it appeared so. And we veer off to like this little river or stream. He starts like catching salmon with his bare hands, and so we're eating. And so I'm like, buddy, you want to tell me who the hell you are now? How did we get here? And he just stops eating. He looks at me and goes, how'd you get here? And I'm like, I don't know. I just woke up and he cuts me off. He's like, you were getting thrown out the back of a Black Hawk chopper, parachute strapped to your back. And I'm just like, listen, what do you know about this place? Like, Is this the Congo, like, or like what part of the Amazon are we in? But then he goes, and this like started kind of freaking me out. He's like, how about I tell you something that I know about you? You saw something you shouldn't have seen. Saw something top secret. Maybe you did a little too much research, or maybe you wandered off into parts you didn't belong and sunk your fangs into something you had no business touching. And I'm getting like shivers down my spine as I think about it right now. But I'm like, how would you know that? And he goes, because all of us did. He's like, this is where they get rid of the ones that know too much. And I'm like, all of us? Like, what do you mean all of us? Like, you've done this before. Like, how many of us are there? And he's like, you think you're the first one I've come for? Don't flatter yourself. And then like he gets mad, and like we're hearing like crazy sounds at this point. Like we're standing in the middle of this jungle, like hearing animal sounds I've never even heard before. Like, and he goes, buddy, we gotta move. You wanna play fucking catch up? We'll do it when we get back to camp alive. We got some numbers, and if we stay close enough to this tribe, we can keep getting supplies when we need food if we're low, and more of us. And I just go, how do I know? How do I know you aren't gonna kill me? I mean, yeah, you said the tribe was good for supplies. How do I know this ain't just a routine food run? And you aren't just luring me back to get an arrow in the chest, make a week's worth of food out of me for you and your so-called others?
I mean, right, you were almost eaten by a tribe. It must have been hard to trust anybody at this point.
Yeah, exactly. And for a moment, his facial expression just shifts. He goes, buddy, if you were my food, we wouldn't be having this conversation. And I'm like, is that so? Be a hell of a lot easier if you convinced me to walk back on my own feet, less heavy lifting.
Jeez.
And he just squints and he's looking at me and he goes, that's a fucked up head you got on your shoulders. You're trusting me as much as I am you. He says, you're starting to scare me. And I'm like, guess that's how I ended up here, isn't it? And he just goes, I guess you'll just have to trust me, lest you feel like staying here. Be my guest. I'll tell the others you didn't make it past the jaguars, or tell them a croc ate you. And I just look at him. I look around. At this point, like, I still have chills from when he reminded me of what I had seen. And I'm like, listen, you said, that I saw something I shouldn't have. You said that that's what got me thrown into this place. But you don't understand, like, our world's in serious trouble. Like, I'm like, you don't understand what I saw. And like, he's just looking back at me, like staring at my soul. And he just goes, yeah, try me. And so I basically explained to him about the last thing I remember before I had ended up thrown out of that chopper. And so I tell him it was a regular day. I was trekking through the Amazon with some locals, and I had ventured off onto my own path. The rest of the guys went back to their village, and I must have crossed over some lines I shouldn't have, and I knew something was really off because I ran into this strange group of people. They weren't a tribe. They could have been government. I don't know. Advanced group of people, and they kidnapped me, probably for trespassing. And so I'm being held in this like reinforced bamboo cage in this crevice of the jungle, and in the middle of the night I'd managed to break enough of the bars to slip out. And so I'm like crawling through this secret base, and of course I hear these agents like coming from behind me, and so I just hit a left and run into this cave. I get behind cover, and then where it gets really strange, like I'm hearing this like loud humming noise. And so I peek over and I see this like purple, like spherical, almost liquid like matter. I mean, every depiction we've ever seen of a portal like this thing was a straight up Stargate portal. And so I'm explaining this part of the story to him. And at that point, when I mention that, he basically laughs, and he just says to me, you stupid bastard, you don't know the first thing about what you saw that night. And so this is when it got really chilling, getting goosebumps thinking about it. So he says to me, how about I tell you what got me thrown in here? And I'm kind of just squinting at him at this point, like, what does he know? And so he starts telling me that he's ex-CIA. He goes, 15 years ago, he was tasked with something called Project Soulgate. He says the US government had been testing this new, almost like alien-like technology that was able to transport matter between any two places as long as there's two active energy transmission stations. And his job was to come up with a more efficient way to exile domestic threats. And this is when my stomach just drops, because he says that he was essentially looking for a place to put people who are classified as NGPs, non-government personnel, who have highly sensitive or like dangerous levels of classified information. And he says to me, I used matter transmission endpoints that the government had gained access to from an off-planet species that they'd allegedly been in communication with. And he says basically from there, he traveled their region of the cosmos until he found this place. And I'm in like tears at this point. I just cut him off like, we're not on Earth. And he goes, buddy, we're not even in the same hemisphere of the universe.